What is the plate by plate approach in eating disorder recovery? Who should use it? When should it be used? My name's Sheena, and I'm a registered dietitian specializing in the care of persons with eating disorders. And this channel focuses all on the psychological and the clinical aspects that come along with eating disorders and in eating disorder recovery. So if that's something that you're interested in learning more about, definitely click on that subscribe button. When is the plate by plate method appropriate to use? So, what I want to say about the plate by plate method is that it has its purpose, but I would always consider it a second option to something like working with a registered dietitian that prescribes an eating disorder recovery meal plan that is unique to the needs of a patient. The reason being is if we're able to custom tailor a meal plan, that's going to be the safest, most effective, quickest route to weight restoring for that patient and minimizing any clinical impacts of that eating disorder. However, not everyone has this option. So that is where the plate by plate approach comes in and where it can be useful. Also, the plate by plate approach is much more simplified than working with a dietitian and having that eating disorder recovery meal plan. And not everyone has access to a registered dietitian. So, the plate by plate approach can be one option that might be feasible for individuals suffering with an eating disorder and their families. Definitely something that you should check with your doctor about before embarking on this, because there can be some medical risks associated with the plate by plate approach, including something like refeeding syndrome, which can actually be life threatening. The plate by plate approach is different than an eating disorder recovery meal plan because it doesn't get as specific as to the exact quantity and types of foods that you should be having. It's also not progressive. So, an eating disorder recovery meal plan is progressive and helps keep that patient at optimal safety as they're weight restoring from their eating disorder. So, those are just a couple of differences. Now, let's dig into what the plate by plate approach looks like and how it can be useful. So, first off, the plate by plate approach is really nice because it is really simple for caregivers and patients. Also, on that note, not every patient has a caregiver or a family member or friend that can support them during weight restoration and with their eating disorder. So, this might be one of the better options for those individuals that don't have quite as much support at home in their eating disorder recovery. The plate by plate approach also encourages mealtime variety, and we're able to choose which foods we want within the paradigm of following the plate by plate approach, which helps people with an eating disorder to still feel like they have some of that autonomy with their own body in their eating disorder recovery. The plate by plate approach is also really nice because it doesn't include complicated exchanges and it isn't really specific on portions or serving sizes. And especially if it is a person that has an eating disorder undergoing this journey alone, this can be really helpful. So let's dig into the specifics of what the plate by plate approach is going to look like. So there are going to be two phases of using the plate by plate approach. So there is the weight restoration phase. And what this is going to include is a 9-inch plate, in which case we divide that plate into one half of the plate being comprised of carbohydrates such as breads, pastas, rice, a fourth of the plate being comprised of proteins such as chicken, pork, beef, a fourth of the plate as being comprised of fruits and veggies, a cup of dairy on the side, and a fat on the side. Now, this is really intended to help that patient weight restore and again to simplify those foods that we're going to need throughout the day in order to properly weight restore and repair any organ and tissue damage from starvation. During this weight restoration phase, we're also going to want to include 3 snacks per day. Each snack needs to be comprised of 2 food groups. So either proteins, fats, or carbohydrates, in which we're combining these for each snack, and we're going to have 3 of those per day. We're going to have 3 snacks per day in both the weight restoration phase as well as the weight maintenance phase, even though our mealtime plate during the weight maintenance phase is slightly different. So, on that topic, during the weight maintenance phase, the structure of our plate is going to change slightly. So, it's going to be kind of a 1/3 by 1/3 by 1/3. So, 1/3 is going to be your proteins, a third is going to be your carbohydrates, a third is going to be your fruits and veggies, and again, a glass of milk on the side and a serving of fat on the side. So, can you see how the plate by plate approach simplifies that weight restoration process and makes it really easy to know what to include on your plate without necessarily having to micromanage calories, portions, and exchanges? This is the really nice thing about using the plate by plate approach. Now, like I said, this option isn't right for everyone, and especially if you have extreme clinical impacts of your eating disorder, the eating disorder has been going on for a really, really long time, or the malnutrition is very severe. If it is an option, I highly encourage you to consider seeking out a registered dietitian specializing in eating disorders, and this includes even if you do choose to use the plate by plate method. I hope that this information was helpful for you. If you found this information helpful, please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing with a friend.